let's start because we're going to talk today about your journey to Guan Yin. So,
Mhm.
how did you meet her?
Yeah, I had I had a very interesting experience of encountering Guan Yin, and I think of it as love at first sight.
Oh,
Um,
I love that.
so, as you know, Kimberly, I lived in Dubai for many years. I was teaching at the university there. I was teaching English, and so I taught for about 13 years. I was a associate professor in English. And I wasn't, I've grown up in the Christian tradition, and I wasn't aware of, I knew the Buddha, but I didn't really know much else. And I was at a shopping mall, and I know you've been to Dubai, and Dubai has all these wonderful shopping malls, some with ski slopes and snow parks, and I came across this figurine that looks sort of feminine, which I assumed that this person must be a disciple of the Buddha. But I didn't know what the identification, markers were at that time. Had very little knowledge of Buddhism. I had just sort of begun on that journey. And so I brought that figurine home, and then I had it then. I was really drawn to it. And then when I immigrated to Canada many years later, I brought the statue with me. But just the only term I had was that, she was a disciple of the Buddha. And so soon after I moved here, I went with a friend to a Buddhist temple, I'd never been there before. And a woman walked up to us and she looked at me and she said, "Hello, I'm Marie, and I feel I have to talk to you." And so I said, "Well, hi." And then she said, "Well, what should we talk about?" I said, "Well, you can show me the temple because I haven't been here before." And the first room that we walked into had a had a figurine that was exactly like the one that I had at home. Wow. So I asked her, I said, "Is this a disciple of the Buddha?" And she said, "No, this is Guan Yin." And at that moment, and Marie spelled her name out, and when I got back home, I Googled her, and it was just, there was this obsession that sort of built up, this love. And then I started reading about her. But at some point, I wondered. I said, "Am I crazy? Like, why am I so obsessed by this goddess?" I come from the land of, where I've grown up, and I grew up in India and in Kenya, and grew up in India where all the temples, Kali, Lakshmi, and Parvati, and I thought, what is it about this goddess that really draws me? And I went to bed one night and I said, am I on the right track? Like, why am I spending so much of my energy researching you? And that night, I actually dreamt of this woman who, that very same night, who arrived in my dreams and said, "Hello, I'm Guan Yin."
Oh my.
And I was so, I was so overwhelmed by her presence. And I said the most ridiculous thing in response. I said, "You must be very busy." And she said, "Yes." And she said, "Yes." And it was a sort of brief encounter before she sort of took flight like a dakini in the air. But it was just amazing. It was this, "Hello, I'm Guan Yin."
Oh, Rantini. I got shivers when you said that. It's like, wow, and I love that. You must be very busy.
You must be very busy. I thought that it was really smart. Guan Yin with 1,000 arms and 11 heads. She must be very busy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And that she appeared. I mean, I think that to me, with so many of the goddesses, you know, and of course Guan Yin being a bodhisattva, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do you agree that her presence is so near to us?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
She is.
she came into your dreams.
Mm-hmm. She is very, you know, I think there's something with Guan Yin. She is very accessible. You know, there is a way, you know, she somehow is more accessible.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So you know, so that's how my journey with her began, and you know, I still remember that night, and you know, just sort of doubting my own sort of sudden love for this.
Yes.
Goddess I didn't know.
She inspires that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I always say that she's the nicest goddess that I know.
You know, but there are times that a certain manifestation of Guan Yin resonates with me more than others. So there were times, you know, there have been times when I felt, why am I working on so many different projects at the same time? I have, you know, a novel going, a memoir, and you know, and working on the deck with Lasha on the wisdom, Tara Wisdom Oracle, and I thought, am I stretching myself too thin? And the image that kept coming to me was Guan Yin with her 1,000 arms, you know, her many arms, and that helped. You know, that sort of helped, and then there are times when there's more anxiety and you know, more fear. And so the Guan Yin of fearlessness, you know, the Guan Yin, you know, that particular Guan Yin sort of resonates more. There are times when I've experienced, you know, I find myself slipping into the scarcity mentality, you know, the poverty consciousness, and you know, especially when they're closed doors, when things are not working out, and then it's a Guan Yin of, you know, in sitting in regal repose, you know, and the sense of royal ease. That if we actually believe in what we talk about, there would be no anxiety. There would be a sense of surrender and more spaciousness and greater peace. You know, that is not to say that there won't be obstacles and difficulties and challenges, because life has suffering and it has all that, but a sense of greater ease in meeting, you know, meeting whatever our life is with, you know, with courage and bravery and a clarity of mind.
That's beautifully said, Ranjini. How does your practice with Guan Yin, what does that look like?
And I think one of the things that I talked to you about before this call was that when I teach at the Tara Mandala Center founded by Lama Sultan in Colorado, at the Temple of 21 Taras, I was struck by the fact, like, you could have just one Tara, but you have 21. You could have just one Guan Yin, but you have 33. And manifestations. And I think part of that is, to me, was an assurance, is that we all just have different talents. We all just have different things that we bring to the world, you know. So just as there's, goodness knows, you know, varieties of even potatoes and varieties of birds and flowers, there are varieties of human beings. And but sometimes as a human being, you look at what someone else does and you think, you know, why can't I do that? Why aren't I like that? And we have a sense of inferiority, a sense of inadequacy. But it struck me that, you know, all these different manifestations teach us that we all have our different special gifts.
Yeah.
So, you know, a turtle is a turtle and not a lion. A lion is a lion, but, you know, but Guan Yin rides a turtle's back. You have, so you have all these, I think the manifestations are just sort of, like facets of a diamond or like a chandelier. It's the same energy, but in different forms, and depending on the particular thing you're going through. So, as I said, I drew on the fierce Taras, I drew on the fierce feminine Kali at a certain point in my life when I found it very difficult to be fierce. I find it easier to be gentle. And then if there's too much activity in me, I'm sort of drawn to the serenity of, just sort of easing and taking rest. So I think they're all, if you look even at, all the Hindu goddesses and
yes,
it's the same energy. But Tara, of course, is beloved in Tibet, and her practices are, again, she is so accessible. People have seen her. She manifests in different forms, and her Om Tare Tare Ture Soha is just another very beautiful way of connecting to her.
it is so beautiful. I shared with you, that's my mantra for the year, that the Om Tare, and it renews the heart completely.
Mm-hmm. It does, yes, it does. And and especially the white Tara, who connects with longevity and is the remove of obstacles, and then the green Tara of fearlessness. So when I feel full of fear, and I connect more to the green Tara, and then the white Tara for different things. And then, of course, the yellow is seen as with abundance, golden.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So tell us a little bit before you go about the Tara Mandala retreats. What could people expect if they were to connect and join you there?
So Tara Mandala was founded by Lama Sultan Alion, and it's an amazingly beautiful. It's all these thousands of acres in Colorado, and so I'm there offering 2 retreats, one in May, and there are 4 of us on that particular retreat, and second one in October with Carla Jackson, Brewer, meditation and writing, journeying to the heart of the Dakini Mandala. So I invite you to look at both. The residential retreats are beautiful. The energy of the land is very powerful at Tara Mandala. It's about, I can't remember how far away it is, but I've often flown into Albuquerque in New Mexico, and then I make the drive down and stop at Taos and Santa Fe, or I just fly into Durango, and it's an hour away. It's, when you go there, the food is wonderful. It's nourishing. There's a prayer ridge, which is gorgeous, and we sometimes go there for morning practice. And there's a beautiful temple of the 21 Taras, and so you're just surrounded. Last year when we taught at the temple, so we sat there surrounded. The May retreat is an all-women's retreat. And then, of course, I'm surrounded by Guan Yin's images. But just the recitation of, from the Heart Sutra, the Gate, Gate, Parasam Gate, Bodhiswaha, it's a powerful invocation goddess. And just the repetition of that, Gate, Gate, Parasam Gate, Bodhiswaha. And Namo Guan Yin Shi Pusa. And so it's something, there are different ways of quietening the mind, and through shamatha meditation practice, and then through mantras. And I find that it's an on the spot. When I feel anxiety, when I feel my mind is too speedy, and then in dreams. And I think it's interesting to me that as we say these very, that these statues, these tankas, these mantras are not something that is just art. It is beautiful art, but it's not just something that has just happened recently, but it has gone on for centuries. And so we are connecting to that particular vibration of sound. And as I remember one of the things that I read is that when you say the mantra, the goddess walks with you. And I believe that. So it's just on the spot, that as you recite the mantra, there is that sense that there she is, you gati gati paragati parasamgati bodhiswaha, there she is, Guan Yin. You're tapping in, to this goddess, she who hears the cries of the world. And is always accessible, that you're tapping in to that energy. And I think as we practice this and as we recite it, whether it's for 108 times, a formal practice with beads, whether it's just 7 times or, just a couple times, I think it permeates into our store consciousness so deeply that I find that even in dreams, if a dream makes me anxious, I'm there reciting her chant. I'm there reciting her mantra and invoking her presence. And I think that helps us. I mean, the different views of the afterlife and what happens after we pass on. But I think that when we soak our consciousness with these mantras and visualizations, they have a hugely transformative power, to purify our environments, our spaces, our mind.
Right? I mean, I find, when I'm in pain or, recently with my health crisis, as I was going through things, I had a little mala bracelet I didn't take off. And when I was afraid, when I was going through testing, I was chanting. And it shifts us. It's amazing.
It is amazing, yes. So it's, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to have those practices. And as you said, at times of, when we go through health challenges and, or when our mind just feels exhausted, the healing, nectar from her ways, just showering us and giving us strength.
I think, Ranjini, that it is such a sustained flow from her. There are no ebbs. It's just constant. I mean, she's just there. And so, I'm really struck by what you said. You must be so busy. Like, that's the kind of because, she never feels busy, though, at the same time, right?
Yes. She's at ease. She has the sense of spaciousness, and vastness. But I guess that, I remember the Dalai Lama saying something like that. I mean, there's no time out. If the Bodhisattva path is something that we aspire to walk on and cultivating compassion and as a way of life and purifying our intentions and our mind and working with our difficult emotions and seeking to be of benefit to ourselves and to others. There's really no time out from that. It's the human life really offers us that opportunity to do that, to practice, even as we work and do everything else, do the laundry and drive and everything else, but that there is this space of practice, there is this meeting of heaven and earth. even just reading it, reading the Heart Sutra, reading the 25th chapter of the Heart Sutra, or just reciting her mantra, you know, Gate Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Swaha, which has been set to music, and you know, so many people have sung it. So it's there on YouTube. And the Namo Guan Yin Shipusa, just the recitation of Namo Guan Yin Shipusa. And I think what has stayed with me is the idea of, you know, that phrase that when you say the mantra, and these mantras that have lasted through the centuries, the goddess walks with you. So just the assurance, because I think there are times when we are open, we are spacious, we are happier, and it feels more accessible. And then there are times we are sad and we feel there's nothing there, and it's, you know, that maybe there's nothing we're putting our faith on. But just that sense of just sort of saying the mantra, it's, I remember Pema Chandran using the word good medicine, is that we're giving our afflictive emotions, we're giving our difficult circumstances good medicine. And I think that the repetition of it. Another chant that I really love and would recommend is Guan Yin is also called Avalokiteshvara. And on YouTube, if you go to the Plum Village, Namo Avalokiteshvara, I can post that later on. It's a longer chant of, you know, it's just a repetition of that for about 20 minutes, and it's beautiful and healing. There have been some very difficult days in my life when I've actually listened to that chant many times during the day, and then gradually just felt light coming in. So use, you know, just using these mantras, using these, you know, chants as good medicine for our minds and for our bodies. And so Guan Yin is there, you know, she's a sister, a mother, a friend.
That's beautiful, Ranjini, thank you. And I will absolutely make sure to pull that as well from Plum Village. And, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh is amazing. Curious, how do you define it?
Mm-hmm. Well, so Guan Yin, you know, the Bodhisattva of compassion. So that sort of drew me, and I was drawn to it at a time when I think I needed a lot of self-compassion. And so for me, compassion is, you know, is different from self-pity or pity. And compassion begins with ourselves. And I think that was, you know, that the compassion begins with being compassionate to ourselves. You know, trusting in our own goodness, forgiving our own failures, our sense of our own failures, our inadequacies, our lack of self-worth, you know, because we can always get into the rut of thinking we're never good enough. But this idea, or we've made mistakes, but this idea, or we wish we were something that we are not. And that can result in envy, jealousy, self-loathing. And I think the basis of compassion, it begins with yourself. So it's called, you know, the Dalai Lama would call it good selfishness. It's, you know, it begins with yourself, where you cultivate that self-compassion. And then it's very simple, just this extending it towards all sentient beings, you know, Mother Earth, in very, very simple ways, realizing, and I find that this extending actually diffuses your own grief. You know, when you realize that all beings suffer, that it's not just you, that it is the first noble truth that life has suffering, but that as we train our mind, there is some cessation of it and more joy. So compassion is a practice, just like happiness is a practice. Mindfulness is a practice. Writing, I teach meditation and writing, and so that writing is a practice. So it is this sort of daily daily intention. I mean, the ego can be tricky. And so I have some gathas that I recite daily and very often. May I act with pure motivation. May I part from selfish ways. May I bring joy and happiness to others. May I free them from pain and suffering. May I have a big and open heart that encompasses the whole world. So just the sense of extending beyond myself, and sort of diffusing negativity that I may feel. So I think it comes from feeling a sense of connection and feeling a sense of interconnection, interbeing.
I think one of the things that is so compelling about Guan Yin, for me personally, and then as I speak to people like yourself as well,
Mm-hmm.
is that she the one demand she does make of us is that self-kindness, self-compassion first,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because as we know, we can't extend if we're empty, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and I think that that's a really interesting trait with her,
Mm-hmm.
the kindness has to begin within ourselves first.
Mm-hmm. I woke up to that. I trained as a Shambhala guide, and I woke up to that as at one of the retreats when the teacher used the word idiot compassion. And I thought, yeah, idiot compassion. And I thought, it struck me that at that point that I was cultivating so much of compassion and I was being compassionate and kind to, others, but I was sort of not very compassionate to myself. And I sort of woke up to the idea of self-compassion. And I think at that point, the idea of the fierce feminine, I connected a lot with Kali from the Indian tradition at that point, because I was very gentle and very compassionate, but I needed to sort of embody that fierce form and take difficult actions with a heart of compassion and loving kindness, but to make difficult choices. And so that was an act of self-compassion.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's what I think. A favorite post on Mother House has been about how we need Guan Yin and Kali.
Yes. We do.
Yeah.
We do. I have a huge Kali party. I was initially a little scared of Kali, and then I embraced. I have this huge image of her on my wall.
I do.
She's life size. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a big banner in my living room of Kali.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some of us, Kimberly, who are very sort of motivated on helping others and motivated on, doing the goddess work, that sometimes we err on that side. We focus so much on meeting everyone's needs, and so I even tell my students when I teach or after a writing retreat, I teach it at the School of Continuing Studies at the University of Toronto in the Creative Writing program. I say that, this over the weekend, I'm not accessing emails, so just sort of giving my time or giving myself time to just nourish myself.